Okay, Julie,
Okay.
the floor is yours.
Uh, Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. On behalf of IVETA, I welcome you to our latest program in our series of Hot Topics webinars. Our speaker today is Tim Jackson, and maybe you tuned in last week to hear him speak on XR and Immersive Technologies. This is actually then a sequel to that presentation. Today he will be talking about the application of virtual and immersive technologies within business and enterprise and education. Tim Jackson comes to us from the UK, where he is a senior lecturer at the Canterbury Christchurch University. So welcome, Tim. Our format today will pretty much be the same as our other Hot Topics webinars. My name is Julie Furst-Bowe. I'm a member of IVETA's executive committee and the journal editor. I'm over here in the US, based in Minnesota this morning, and I'll be the moderator. First, we will have Tim give a brief presentation, and then we'll open the floor up for any of your questions. You can type your questions in the chat, or you can ask them later in the presentation. So without further comment, I'll turn it over to Tim.
Thank you, Julie, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's really lovely to be with you again. Yeah, brief presentation. It might be a bit longer than brief. It is a follow-up presentation. So if you were with us last week, welcome back. So last week I was talking about it's more like a primer, sort of an introduction to what we mean by XR technologies and immersive technologies. And I'm kind of going to very quickly recap on that at the beginning again. For those of you who weren't with us last week, because if you're not sure of what those technologies are, then some of what I'm going to be talking about and showing you today isn't really going to make much sense. So I'm going to do just a very quick recap, just to kind of set the context a little bit. There's going to be quite a few videos today because it is about practical application and showing you what I mean by these technologies. And I've tried to choose a range of different applications and a range of things to show you. So do bear with me, do go with it. I've got lots of links in here. I've got lots of resources. That's all in the presentation. The presentation has been shared with the team, so they'll make that available to you, and we'll be sort of just going through it step by step. If you have any questions, please leave them to the end. I'll be happy to take them. And I have also an update from a question that was asked last week as well, so I'll bring that into the questioning at the same time. So what I shall do, I'm going to share my screen. And I just want to double check with Julie to make sure that you should be able to see a screen that says Canterbury Christchurch University.
Yes, yeah, we can see that.
Fantastic. Okay, so this is who I work for. My name is Tim Jackson, as Julia said. I work as a senior lecturer and course director at Canterbury Christchurch University. If you're looking at my face, it could be I'm looking in different directions because I've got 3 screens in front of me that I'm controlling the presentation with. So it's not that I'm ignoring you or looking in the opposite direction. It's just I'm actually controlling different things all at the same time. Okay, so Canterbury Christchurch University is based in the UK. It's in Kent, which is in the southeast of the United Kingdom, in a city called Canterbury, which you may or may not have heard of, but it has historical significance, so well worth looking up. Not to be confused with Christchurch in New Zealand, which is a completely different Christchurch. Okay, so let me just try if that's what I want. This over here. So right, I'm just moving some things around so I've got them handy. There we go. All right, so today's session is all about the application, the practical application of XR and immersive technologies. We've only got an hour, so it would be impossible to go through the practical application of everything. So I'm using virtual reality as our focus, simply because that's the technology that most people seem to be interested in, and also the one that's probably the easiest to implement based upon current technologies, although that is changing as we speak. So this is what I've got as my agenda. These are the things I'd like us to go through. So we've had the welcome, and I'll just bring a quick biography of mine up in just a moment so you know who I am. And then, as I said, I want, as an introduction, just to have a quick recap as what we mean by XR and immersive technologies. So just very, very quick definitions just to explain the context. Then I want to look at using virtual reality. So we're then sort of like centering on VR as a learning tool and how we would do that with students. Then the practical use of virtual reality. So that's where a lot of the videos are going to be. And I want to talk very briefly about something called the democratization of education. And it will be very obvious when we get there what that is, and hopefully you'll associate with that. Part of virtual reality and the success of virtual reality centers around three key, what we call the three key pillars of virtual reality, called immersion, presence, and interactivity. So towards the end of the presentation, I'll be talking about what that actually means and why VR is so effective as a training tool, whether that be in education or whether that be training within enterprise and employment. The concepts are the same. And then we'll have an opportunity for question and answers at the end. I would like to point out, as a proper academic, I do have references. So everything is referenced. You will see throughout the screens, there are hyperlinks there. Anything that's underlined is a hyperlink, and you can click on it. Most of the videos or most of the images have a hyperlink behind it as well. And it will be in the reference section. Right at the very end, I've included another section called useful resources. And there's about 8 or 9 different resources on there that I think you will find interesting, which is an extension to what we're going to be talking about today. So it gives you some extra reading to go and have a look at that will give you some more information. Okay, so that's a quick bio of mine. I'm not going to read it. If you want to read it, you can do. You're more than welcome to. But that's just saying pretty much what I've just said. I'm a senior lecturer. I'm a course director for software engineering. I've been in education, well, for nearly 23 years. I've said over 22, but it's nearly 23 years. I have a broad skill set, but XR and immersive technologies is one of the ones I'm particularly interested in. I've built VR labs, I've built immersive rooms, I've built robotic labs, all sorts. I was employed at a local college, and I've recently moved to Canterbury Christchurch University. I've been here about 10 months now. And we've already rewritten the university strategy for the use of immersive technologies and XR technologies. And we're now running something called the Immersive Centre, which is like the central university hub for anything XR and immersive technologies. And I'm currently studying for postgrad qualifications, which, funnily enough, is all about XR technologies and how we use it within education and how it benefits students. So what is the context for today? So I just kind of like put a little snippet on here. I think you've got a good idea already, but I just wanted to very quickly read this to you. So with the use of XR and immersive technologies, broadly speaking, on the rise, this session will consider a range of different applications which exist that you can apply in the context of business and enterprise as one aspect, and education, which is a different aspect. What's interesting is that people tend to see training in business and enterprise as something completely different to training in education. Fundamentally, it's the same, although the way it's done, the methodology might be slightly different because of time constraints and pressures on budgets. But fundamentally, the process is the same. So we're going to include applications that can be used for the development of academic, technical, and interpersonal skills. Sometimes you'll hear that called soft skills, for a wide range of users within a variety of contexts. So teaching, learning, assessment, research, staff training, all of that. So what you're going to see today can be used in multitude of contexts. That's kind of what I'm saying. So as our preamble, I just wanted to give you some very quick definitions so you understood the context in which we're talking. So XR, and I've put in brackets there, VR, AR, and MR. I know, lots of acronyms, sorry. But they are embedded within XR technologies, which I'm going to explain. And immersive technology is slightly different. Right, so XR stands for extended reality. So it takes the X from extended, not the E. And the reason for that is because ER, other than being emergency room, but ER is actually enhanced reality, which is a different technology altogether. So they couldn't use ER, they had to use the X, so hence XR technologies. So it's an umbrella term that incorporates the three main technologies, which are VR, AR, and MR. So virtual reality is probably the one you know the best. So it's purely computer generated graphics. So you would be represented as an avatar in a computer generated environment, which means you can create anything, anytime, anywhere. Augmented reality is the other end of the extreme. So you would use something like a phone, for example, or a tablet, and you would look through the screen, and the device you're using is creating a computer generated graphic, but it's overlaying it into the real world. So a good example of that, I don't know if you've played the game Pokemon Go. That's a good example of augmented reality. Also, there are some sat-nav systems now that you can play through your phone that will superimpose an arrow on the path you're walking on or the road you're driving on. All examples of augmented reality. And then we've got sort of like somewhere in between called mixed reality. So mixed reality takes a combination of AR and VR. So with VR, you wear a headset. With AR, you use a tablet or a phone. With MR, mixed reality, you use kind of like a headset, but you can see through it. So the Apple Vision Pro, for example, the Meta Quest 3 and the new 3S. And also things like HoloLens, which unfortunately has now been discontinued by Microsoft, which is a shame. But actually, glasses, for example, that have cameras in them, another example of mixed reality. Ray-Ban do a very, very good set of sunglasses that are mixed reality capable. Okay, so this is the same as AR in as much that you are generating computer graphics in the real world, but the difference with MR is it's much more functional. You can actually interact with them in a much more functional way. For example, the medical industry is really hot on this at the moment. And there was a recent study where a nurse in a surgical context had used mixed reality to help place all the tools, all the surgical instruments in the right place, in the right order for the surgeon. And she was wearing like a pair of goggles that gave her the instruction as to what to do. So there's an example of mixed reality. Immersive technologies is a bit broader than that. It refers to any digital technology that creates or enhances or even simulates the real world environment. Okay, so creates, enhances, or simulates a real world environment. Sometimes people call that digital twins, but actually immersive technologies is a bit bigger than that. So it includes VR, AR, MR, but it also includes AI-driven technologies such as photogrammetry, which is using special cameras to create digital twins, and also something called web-based frame technologies, which essentially means virtual reality in a website. So that's an immersive technology as well. So all of these are different examples. There are links in the references at the end that will expand on these a little bit more if you want to know a little bit more technical detail. And I've put this image in there, which I just thought was a nice image to kind of encapsulate it. So you can see that XR is the whole thing. And then you've got the extremes, augmented reality on the left-hand side, virtual reality on the right-hand side. So you've got a mix of digital and real life, all the way through to completely immersive digital. And then the overlap in the middle is mixed reality, which is digital in the real world, but very functional. Okay, so that just kind of gives you a bit of an idea as a recap as to what they actually mean. Okay, so let's get down to business. So we're looking at VR as a learning tool. So here are some examples of how VR can be used for individualized training plans for education, but can also be used for employee training as well. Now, this is all about soft skill training. So developing skills for interaction, presentation, communication, anything that you would need to use on a day-to-day basis that's not technical. Okay. So before I do that, I just wanted to bring up this. We call it the 5 elements, the 5 key elements to VR learning. There is a link at the bottom. So as we go through the slides, in the blue bit at the bottom, if you see white writing, that's a hyperlink to the research that is based on, or rather the slide is based upon that research. Okay, so the link at the bottom is called the VR Advantage, how virtual reality is redefining soft skills training. The information that's showing on the screen now is based upon that research. Okay, so you can go and read it a little bit more and get a little bit more information. So the 5 key elements are, and the stats are there if you want to read through the stats, but learners who learn in VR courses can be trained up to 4 times faster. This, by the way, was a study by PricewaterhouseCoopers, hence PwC. And they did a really interesting study. It was a limited study, but it was a study nevertheless. So they said VR learners can learn up to 4 times faster. Also, VR learners are more confident in applying what they've taught. So they felt more, because they were interacting more, they felt they were able to do the job much better. Learners are more emotionally connected to VR content. And it says there that they are 3.75 times more emotionally connected and 2.3 times more connected than, for example, learning through Teams. VR learners are more focused, and they're 1.5 times more focused than any other mode of delivery. And VR learning can be more cost effective at scale, which basically means the more VR learners you have, the lower the cost per student. That's essentially what that means. Okay, so, and the study is at the bottom of the page, so you can click on that and read a little bit more. So the first one we're going to have a look at is something called body swaps. There's a link at the top. That link is to their main website, but there's also a link towards the bottom, again, from Body Swaps, and it gives you their study, the study that they've done about soft skills training using virtual reality. Okay, so this is just a little bit of background about them. It puts the learner in a safe environment, you know. So if you're doing things like job interviews, that can be quite stressful for some people, being put in front of the perfect stranger and not knowing how to react. Well, the training in something like Body Swaps actually takes you through the process first, gives you guidance, advice, then puts you into the interview in a VR environment, and you feel much safer in that environment because you know that if at any time you're worried, you just take the headset off. So you're absolutely in control. And they're delivered as if you were in a face-to-face environment. I'm going to show you a video in a minute that gives you some examples. And they're available in French and English because one of the co-founders of Body Swaps is French. And you are able to play these on multiple platforms. So you don't have to have a VR headset itself, although in VR, it's the most immersive. But you can play these, when I say play the program, I mean, on PC, on tablets, on mobile phones. So it is multi-platform. So it's very, very flexible. And I've just listed some of the key modules that you can see there. So these are some of the key areas that Body Swaps deals with. And what's interesting, most recently, they've been developing a range of modules specifically for the medical industry. Okay, so communication between doctors, nurses, patients, and how you have those difficult conversations, and how you would deal with a patient that is not conforming or refuses treatment, for example. Okay, so that's just to give you some context about what you're about to look at. So what I've done is, this is the video itself, but I'm actually on the next page, I've actually blown it up to full size so you can read it properly. There's a link at the top that takes you to this video, not this video, but takes you to Body Swaps' research. And the link in the blue at the bottom is the link to this video if you want to play it again and again, up to you. Okay, so here's the first video. We've tested this earlier on, so it should play without any problems, and you should be able to hear it quite well. So here we go. It's about 2 minutes.
Welcome to the future.
We're going to be exploring some techniques you can use to increase confidence.
Your first shift is just about to start. Now, go out there and smash it.
Tell me about a time when you worked in a team.
Don't be shy about telling us what you really think.
Great start.
Okay, so you could see there that there was a variety of different environments that they were interacting with, and where you saw a list of options and you were pressing on the option, that was the training part. Where those options weren't there, you were actually speaking, and that was the testing part. So you can see how you build guidance before you actually go into the real world environment, if you like, but in virtual reality. And it was showing a variety of different contexts there. So public speaking, difficult conversations, job interviews, and so on and so forth. So this is all soft skill development, right? So this is another one called virtual speech. Again, the URL is up at the top of the page. This is just another example of the same sort of thing, but done in a slightly different way. Oops, sorry, too many clicks. There we go.
Our award-winning VR training has been used by hundreds of companies and universities around the world. And with all of those learners, we're noticing a much higher engagement level compared to traditional learning methods. One of the great things about learning with VR is that both the learner and a trainer or manager can track progress and quantify learning in a way that just wasn't possible before.
Okay, so same thing again, just done in a slightly different way. You could, what was interesting with why I chose this particular video is you could see the way the information is fed back to the students. So you could see they were getting feedback on clarity of speech, volume, eye contact. It's tracking your eyes, so it actually knows where you're looking in the audience. And are you looking in the right place, or are you like trying to stare somebody out? And it will give you that as feedback and gives you something to work on. All right. So that's just one example. So both of those are VR applications that we use here at the university, by the way, for training students with soft skill development. Because the feedback we had from industry was, although our students were very technically able, they weren't very good at articulating, they weren't very good at communicating. So we made a conscious decision to invest in this technology, to encourage students to be able to communicate much more effectively and clearly. So when they go into business, when they're working with employers, actually they're the full package, not just the technical skills, but they have the ability to communicate as well. So that's that first part. So this next section is a little bit more technical. So these are some practical applications that I thought you would find interesting. Some of these are education based, some of these are employment based. So these are some examples of how VR applications can be used to enhance learning opportunities within education and commercial environments. Okay, so we've got, for example, some science labs. We've got some engineering labs. So I've tried to have a range of different technical areas for you to be able to have a look at. So the first one is called Labster. The link for the video is down the bottom there, but I've expanded it and I'll click on the next page in just a minute. So Labster is a program that basically recreates a science lab in a VR environment, where it allows you to do a range of different experiments. Okay, so let's have a look at that one. Oh, there we go.
What if you could give your students access to a fully equipped $1 million laboratory that engages them in science through a highly immersive learning experience? With Labster, you can. Labster offers students access to a realistic lab experience that will let them perform experiments and practice their skills in a fun and risk-free learning environment. Students learn with the help of theory pages and quiz questions, and experience immersive 3D simulations that visualize life science down to the molecular level. This helps them understand abstract concepts and master difficult techniques. They are challenged with true-to-life scenarios and missions, stimulating their curiosity and highlighting the connection between science and the real world. Virtual labs are not limited by the time and cost restraints of a physical lab, so students can try out cutting-edge lab equipment, learn from their mistakes in a safe environment, and perform experiments not usually possible in a face-to-face class. Research shows that students learn twice as much when traditional lectures are supplemented by Labster's virtual labs. Get Labster today and help empower the next generation of scientists to change the world.
Okay. So again, you got the idea of that. And I think there's two key points to highlight from this, which you can apply to virtual reality in general, and not just virtual reality, but XR in general. Two things they noticed, or they stated. The first thing is it's risk-free. You know, so you can put somebody in quite a dangerous environment in a virtual reality headset and know they're 100% safe. I didn't find it for this presentation, but there is a program that actually is an instructional program that teaches people how to react when an oil rig is on fire. Now, you don't actually want to put people on a burning oil rig to train them on how to react when the oil rig is on fire. But you can do that in a simulated environment using virtual reality to teach them the fundamentals without any risk to them whatsoever. The second thing is cost, okay? And I'm talking about not cost of implementation, kind of, but more cost of putting these things in place in terms of how much would it cost you to build that lab in real life with those experiments? How much would it cost you to create a construction site and use all those bricks just to practice how to lay bricks, for example? Okay, so it makes learning much more affordable for an organization, and it allows you to be able to practice a lot more different, potentially unsafe environments in a safe environment at a significantly reduced cost. So your wastage, your cost of wastage is significantly less, okay? And therefore the risk to the student is also significantly less. So there's many reasons as to why you would want to do this, okay? So the next one, there's a company called Victory XR out in the States. And in fact, their CEO just went in front of the Senate recently and was talking about the use of artificial intelligence within XR technologies and he actually sat in front of a select committee wearing a pair of, I think it was Ray-Ban glasses, AR glasses, and then he explained what that technology was, and it was really, really interesting to watch that, and it's well worth having a look at. So Victory XR is the company, and they have collaborated with a company called HTC. And if you don't know who HTC are, they are one of the major manufacturers of VR headsets. And they've created digital twins. So it's a recreation in purely virtual format, in computer generated format, that allows you to recreate an environment that a student can interact with without having the cost of building a brand new one. Okay, so it's pure simulation. Again, there's a video for this, and the link is in the blue section at the bottom of the slide. And as before, I've expanded it onto the next slide. Oh, single click, there we go. Right, see what you think of this. I'll actually bring that quote up in a minute on the next slide, but you can see there was a whole variety of different topic areas there that had been recreated as part of this digital twin campus. So if you were studying science or astrology or physics, whatever it was, sorry, astronomy, not astrology, astronomy or physics or any of those key sciences, we can recreate those in virtual reality, and it allows that for an interactive experience for students. The quote that came up a moment ago is this one. So it's actually Freeman 2021 reports that retention, so that's the retaining of information and then being able to use it in a different environment. So retention level 1 year after a VR training session can be as much as 80% retention. So a year afterwards, you can still remember what you were doing in VR. The level of retention is that deep. Whereas traditional teaching, where you're in a classroom or in online learning, can only be so like 20%. It's significantly different, but that's 20% after 1 week, whereas VR, it's 80% after 1 year. So not only is your time scale different, but the level of retention is different too. Okay, and if you want to go and check that out, I've put the link there. So I've quoted the person, and I've actually put the link to Freeman's paper. All right, so you can go and click on that and have a read of that if you want to know a little bit more. I mentioned engineering earlier on. So there's another company called IXR Labs. They've actually, the CEO has actually contacted me. They want me to do a podcast next week on XR technology. So that could be quite interesting. So I'm going to show you one of their videos in a minute. They do a lot of employment-based educational videos. This particular one is engineering. They do a lot of engineering virtual reality programs. So it's labs, simulations, classrooms, and they're all at higher education level. So they're all like degree level and highly technical level. Okay. Now, this image here, if you click on it, that will actually take you to the YouTube playlist for this particular company that shows you all of these technologies working. I've also put a link down the bottom, VR and engineering, or VR and engineering education. So this is IXR Labs YouTube channel. Basically, it's well worth having a look at. That's why I've put the screenshot and the hyperlink in there for you. So the one I've chosen for you, basically, it's a bit of an very fundamental engineering. It's learning about a step-down transformer in virtual reality. Okay, it's not terribly long. I'm not necessarily going to play all of it, but this is just to give you a bit of a taster. Okay, and as always, I've expanded it on the next screen. Takes a second or two to get going. Okay, so you get an idea how this is working, right? Okay, so this is just, oops, sorry. This is just a very simple instructional video that talks about how transformers work. What you would have here is you would have an instructor. Obviously, you wouldn't have the music playing in the background. You would have an instructor who is then going through all of the different components. There's actually an explanation that came up at the bottom that describes what's going on. And if you look at the screen now, it actually describes the operation of a transformer. So this is in X-ray mode. So as it's playing, you can see the transformer working, but you can also explode it and put it back together again. So this is for a transformer. There's actually one for jet engines as well. So if you're an avionics engineer, that would be the sort of thing that interests you. But there's quite a few different videos, and it's well worth going to have a look at. But your instructor would be taking you through this process, but it would all be done remotely, online, or using virtual reality headsets. Okay, but it's just another example of more technical learning using XR technologies. Right. This is a little bit different. Okay, so this is now taking it to the next level. So by incorporating artificial intelligence within training, we can then get the artificial intelligence to drive what it is you're learning. So this is a company called Engage. I've worked with them so many times before, and they've created something called School of AI. All right, I'm going to play you a quick trailer for it in a minute. Again, you can see links here. You can actually create your own AI character in the Engage platform. So you can sign up for Engage for a free account, have a play with the AI, create your own characters, paste it on a historical character, and you'll actually having a conversation with that person who was from history, no longer alive. You're having a conversation that's based on either interviews or historical information or other types of data that would drive what that person would say to you if you ask them those questions. Okay, so this is worth having a bit of a play with when you get some time. So I've got a link at the top calling Create Your Own AI in Engage. I've got a link here down the bottom that says School of AI Engage. That takes you to the page you're looking at now. Now, before I actually show you the video, I just want to bring your attention a recent study. So this was back in September, so it's only 3-4 weeks old. I'll quickly bring it up on the screen so you can see it. So I'm just going to change my screen just for a moment. So you should, in a moment, see an article.
Yeah.
Can you see that? So
Yes,
it's students learn twice as much with an AI tutor than with typical lectures. That worries me slightly, given my job. But there are some caveats with that. There are some provisos with that. So you have to be a little bit careful, because AI is not 100% accurate at the moment, but it's not bad. It's probably about 86% accurate. So this was a really interesting article. The link at the bottom of the presentation slide is this article, so you can have a read through that. There's a link to the study there, so you can click on that and it will take you to the study itself. All right, so that's the abstract, and all of these you can then open up and have a read through. Okay, so there's some really, really interesting information, very interesting studies on the use of artificial intelligence within virtual reality, XR in general, but virtual reality specifically. So let me show you just a quick snippet of what the School of AI is about.
What if you could meet the people that shaped our society? Hear the voice of the great discoverers, the inventors.
What if you could ask them what motivated them?
Our spirits are alive.
Powered by conversational AI. Based on memories, interviews, and experiences. Visit us in historical virtual locations using phones, tablets, or the latest immersive technology. Bring history to life by talking to the people who shaped it.
Don't just read about history, create it.
I am real. Come visit me.
We are the School of AI.
Okay, so that's next generation virtual reality using artificial intelligence to be able to interact with historical characters and ask them questions. Why did you do it this way? How did that work? What were the restrictions on you? And you're actually getting reasonably realistic responses based upon historical data, experiences, interviews, whatever it is. Obviously depends on how long ago the character is you're talking about. You'll notice there was quite a broad time era for those characters. So you had Nicholas Tesla was there, you had Marie Curie, Winston Churchill, but also people like Plato and Socrates from ancient Greece. So, you know, I think there's about 20 plus characters that they've developed so far. It's worth having a look at. All right, so it's, you know, take the time. I've put the links in the presentation, so I'm just going to come back to the slideshow now. So hopefully, Julie, you should now be able to see the presentation again. I'm hoping that's a yes.
Yes.
Good.
Yes,
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. So the links are on the slides. Go and click on them. Go and have some fun. Go and read the study, because it's important you understand why this is working the way it is. Okay. Right. So the last section I want to talk about is using VR. So I've called it the importance of immersion, presence, and interactivity. And if you remember earlier on, I spoke about the democratization of education. Now, I've put a link right down at the bottom in the blue section. You'll see there's a link there called the democratization of education, the basic principles. So this is from the UNESCO Digital Library. It's part of a much larger publication, but that link will take you specifically to the section on democratization of education. You can read the rest of the document as well if you want. I have put a hyperlink in the references at the back, so you've got a direct link to it as well. So what does this actually mean, and why does virtual reality play an important part in that? So first of all, it's recognizing that everybody, not just students, everybody must be given the opportunity to undertake education, training, and self-development. Okay, it's a matter of choice. Okay, it doesn't mean you're going to force everybody to go through education. You've got to give them the opportunity to undertake education, training, and self-development. And we're not just talking about at school. We're not just talking about as a young adult. We're talking throughout your life as you change roles, as you enhance your skills, as you develop within your career. And this is a fundamental right of all human beings. Okay, and this is what UNESCO is talking about, hence the democratization of education. But UNESCO also says that, you know, in order for this to happen, we need to have a high level of cooperation and collaboration at every possible level. So we're talking about, you know, people who write the laws, the legislators, the people who are running the finance side of things, the economists, sociologists, so we understand the impact on the learner and how we can enhance that. Teachers, because we're the ones delivering it. Educational administrators, so the people in the institutions that are putting these things in place and making those decisions. Okay, we need to make sure that there is the appropriate legislation in place to encourage learners, and we're all learners in life, not just students, we're all learners. Okay, and it's making sure we've got the right infrastructure in place, the right support financially, legislatively, structurally, to make sure that this is an opportunity for everybody to undertake. So it's really good that you are here today from wherever you are in the world, listening to this presentation, talking about the democratization of education, because you being here today is a prime example of what that actually means. Okay, but in addition to that, it's not just giving people an opportunity to learn. Democratization also talks about and promotes the need for students, learners, to be responsible and in control of their own learning. Okay, you know, you're not there spoon feeding them. They go in whatever direction they feel they need to in order to develop their skills, their careers, their job skills, whatever it is. It doesn't really matter whether it's soft skills, technical skills. Put them in control. Let them do what they need to do to make sure that they are learning what they want to learn. Now, XR and Immersive Technologies are what we call experiential. So they're experience-based technologies, okay? And this encourages participation through immersion, presence, interactivity, okay? And that promotes student self-control and the development of learning. And I'm just going to talk about that a little bit more on the next slide, and then we're nearly there. So you can see what democratization is, and that XR is an important technology to make that happen. So in higher education, all right, we use experiential learning methods and techniques, and XR technologies, VR in particular, is a perfect tool to do that with. VR itself is experiential. And basically what that means is it doesn't matter how many times I tell you about it, you need to be in it. You need to try it for yourself so you can experience it and understand what it really means. For example, if I was teaching you how to swim, there is no point me sitting here on a Zoom call doing this. That means nothing to you. All it shows you is, well, here's a technique. Here's another one. Okay, but you can't see my feet splashing away, right? The only way that you can actually learn to swim properly is go in the water, go into a pool, go into the sea and have a splash about and have a go with some instruction. Okay, it's experiential learning. That's what I'm trying to say. Virtual reality has these three pillars. Okay, we call them immersion, presence, and interactivity. And this is based on Mutterlin's study in 2018 that talks about the relationship between these key features that influence your experience of virtual reality and whether that's a positive experience for you or not. Okay, so I want you to think about this. Immersion is a really important word. Immersion means that you have convinced yourself you really are where you think you are. Presence means you feel part of the environment. Interactivity means you're doing something. You're not just an observer, you're an active participant. You're interacting, you're doing things within the environment that makes you believe you are there, and therefore you are fully immersed into the VR environment as a learning environment. What's interesting is the level of immersion, the the level of presence, and the level of interactivity has a direct impact on whether you feel satisfied with that VR experience or not. For example, if you are in an environment and you're just stood there watching, or if you are in a digital twin of a classroom and you're just sat there and watching a teacher talk at you for a couple of hours, your level of experience and your level of satisfaction is going to be pretty low, because nothing has changed. There's no interactivity, there's no immersion, you don't feel part of the session. But if we were having a medical class and I put a giant heart in front of you and said, have a look at that, take it apart, put it back together, look at how the blood flows, okay? Your level of satisfaction of that VR learning experience is significantly higher because you're interacting, because you feel present, you feel part of that process, and therefore you become more fully immersed, okay? And these are the three key pillars of virtual reality. So how do you adopt this in your work? So I want you to realize that XR and immersive technologies, they're just tools. They're not there to replace anybody. There's no way they can replace a lecturer. There's no way they can replace experience, but they are there to enhance the learning experience of learners. They're just tools. They have strengths and weaknesses like every other tool, okay? But here's the thing. You're the experts in your areas. Okay, you are best placed to understand how you could use this technology and how that could be used to enhance your specialisms, not just for you and your learning, but for the learning of other people, whether they be students, employees, colleagues, doesn't matter. So what I want to leave you with is this thought. What ideas do you have for using XR in your work, in your research, and in your development, your own self-personal development? And when we talk about XR, remember we're talking about AR, MR, and VR, as well as immersive technologies. So before I give you the opportunity to ask questions, I just want to bring up a slide. These are my contact details, so that's who I am. They're all hyperlinked, so that's a link to the university's website, my email, my LinkedIn profile, etc., etc. As promised, there's references there. They're all hyperlinked. You can have a look at those. And the last page is some really useful resources that I think you will find useful that support what we've been doing today.
Well, thank you, Tim, for that excellent presentation with so many engaging examples for us to get a sense of what this would look like in the classroom. We only have a few minutes left. Does anyone have any questions? I'm not seeing. Oh, okay, I do. There is a question in the chat. Again, these are some excellent technologies. We heard you talk a lot about the advantages of these technologies. She's asking, though, could you maybe share any drawbacks or any negative feedback?
Well, on the last slide, I said that, there are advantages and disadvantages to these. There are lots of advantages. I'm not here selling you anything. I'm not affiliated to any of the companies that I've spoken about today, but I have used them myself. And I wouldn't share it with you if I wasn't confident that these technologies would do the job. Obvious drawbacks would be things like cost. So cost of implementation, cost of maintenance, having a support structure in place that makes sure that these things continue to work. They're computers like everything else. Cost of software. You will have licensing costs. You will have legal implications as to how we control students' data. So there'll be legislation issues you need to think about. GDPR is one in Europe, and the UK has Data Protection Act. I'm sure there's federal law in the United States as well that governs the control of data. So, I'm not pretending that this isn't a minefield. What I would say is this is well worth doing, and it's well worth treading through the minefield carefully and making sure that you do have the infrastructure in place legally, financially, and every other way, because this will benefit your users and it will benefit your students, because I've seen it in my own teaching practice.
Do we have any other questions?
Yes, Julie. Good day. Am
Hello.
I being heard?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I'm Halden Morris. I'm Kingston, Jamaica.
Hello there.
First, let me say thanks to Tim for this engaging presentation.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
I think it will go far way in getting us understanding how to engage, and I think this needs to happen in fast
Super.
order.
Well, there's
My
plenty of
question
links
is, you mentioned a lot of links.
Yeah, there's plenty of links you can
Go
click on
ahead.
to get extra information for sure.
Yes. Yeah, you did mention a lot of links, and I think myself and others would want to click on those links. Is there a document that we'll get? Can you share with those links since it happened so fast in the presentation?
Yeah, I've already shared the document with IVETA, so I know that they will share that with people who have registered for this session today.
Okay, I appreciate that. That was really my question.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
I just want to very quickly share something with you as we were talking about cost a minute ago. And this is just a very quick update from what I spoke about in a previous last week's session. Can you see something called MetaQuest 3S on your screens?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. So last week there was a question about cost as well. Absolutely. Since last week's presentation, there has been a change in as much that last week I said, well, look, you know, if you're going to get VR headsets, sets like mixed reality headsets like the MetaQuest 3 would be the way to go. They're about $400, $450 each. But last week, Meta launched a new product called the MetaQuest 3S, which is also mixed reality, but it's coming in at $290. Okay, it's not as powerful as the Quest 3, but it is quite powerful, and it will quite easily run virtual reality and mixed reality applications. So I just wanted to share that very quickly with you to say there has been an update since last week.
Okay, well, with that, thank you very much, Tim. We are out of time. Thanks to everyone, certainly our presenter, Tim Jackson, to Olga for doing all of the coordination behind the scenes to make these webinars happen. And thank you all for participating. Please join us next Wednesday for the next of our Hot Topics webinars. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you and bye.